Thank you very much, gentlemen. I am joined by Pole Belter after their very tough matchup in the semifinals versus Team Solo Mid. I have to ask you, coming off the bat, Pole Belter, are there any kind of initial thoughts going into the game and now after the game?
Well, I think that TSM improved a lot, and they played a lot better than I had expected them to. So, props to them on that. They came in like way stronger than I think anyone was expecting, actually. Besides that, I don't know, it just felt pretty hard to face up against them. I think maybe our read on the meta was wrong. We kept trying to pick damage dealers against all their tanks, and then didn't really feel like it was working out. Whether it was up to execution or whether our theory on it was wrong, I don't know. We'll have to discuss it, but yeah.
Well, it still looked quite strong, even when you had leads in that game. So was there anything you can kind of pinpoint that stopped you guys from getting your foot through the door? Or was TSM just they had your number?
I think they had pretty good disengage in most of the games. Actually, well, that last game, it was pretty hard to kind of find an engagement on them, which is what you want to do as Lissandra. And then it felt like we couldn't really peel back and fight either, because Maokai was not killable. Yeah, wow, it was just tough. My brain's kind of frazzled right now.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are kind of wowed by the results of that matchup. I do have to say, final question for you, though. You guys had one of the most dominant splits we've seen in a spring split in the NALCS. Are you guys going to return next year and do even better than that, or is this an easy experience to learn from?
Yeah, sure, I can hope that we'll do better than what we showed this year. Sure, we had the 17-1 regular season, but it doesn't matter if you fall out in the semifinals. Probably everyone's really crushed right now after having such a dominant regular season, and now we don't even make it to the finals. But yeah, we'll probably have to do some reflection, pinpoint the mistakes we made.
All right, Pole Belter, thank you very much for the interview. I'm sure the fans are very much pleased to still see you guys head over to Vegas and play for that third, fourth match. Now we are going to toss it over to the analyst desk to break down the rest of the day.
Don't feed.
Thank you very much, Rivington. I'm here with 3 of the victorious members of Team Solo Mid, Svenskar and Doublelift, and Bjergsen. First off, congratulations, guys, on a commanding 3-0 victory over Immortals. And that's where I have to start, is that would have to say the larger population did not expect a 3-0 victory. If TSM was going to win, that it wasn't going to happen in 3 games. So, Bjergsen, we saw a dominating performance over C9 in the last 3 games of that series. How confident were you guys coming into this Immortals series that you could 3-0 them?
We built up a lot of confidence going into C9, and I would say that me personally, I was a little bit less confident, but I was still pretty confident in my team's ability to beat them. And after the first game, when we came back, I think it just really proved to everyone that even though we can play a bad early game, we can make a lot of mistakes, we can win any game. And that just made us play so much better in the other games.
22-20 was your score line there against Immortals, so fabulous play out of you. Doublelift, coming to you. I did ask you following the C9 series how exactly TSM came together in the 2 weeks that you had off, but here now you've put down the 17-1 Immortals from the regular season. That's just another tier up. So what was it in particular that you guys worked on going into this series against the first place Immortals?
I think we just focus on the aspects that are most important to us, and especially right now in this meta, it's pretty much all about shot calling, the right lane allocation, and just teamwork, team play, and team fighting. For example, even yesterday, CLG versus TL, all the rotations just kind of ended up being whatever, let's just team fight 5 times in a row, and that's exactly how we went against Immortals too. We just out team fought them. So we really, really tunneled on that, and I think it was definitely a great harvest, I guess, of our work.
Sven, last time I spoke to Bjergsen, he mentioned that the 2 of you had been working greatly on your synergy, and that showcased both in the game against C9, but also today. For you in particular, though, as an individual, received some criticism and flack throughout the season as being one of the underperforming members on the team. Here, though, you step up and you put down the MVP of the league in Reignover. Absolutely schooled him in the jungle through all 3 games. So for you as an individual, what was the journey like between the regular season and the playoffs?
I just feel like the regular split, we just didn't fit together as much as a team. But since the energy lost, then everyone really thought about what to do and how to improve as a team, and we just came together. And beating Reignover, I think he's really good, but the meta right now is more favored towards me, kind of. because Tank's top is really good and stuff like Nidalee and Graves jungle can actually work. So he's really good on Rek'Sai and Gragas, which I'm not as good on. So I think the meta just favors us right now.
Well, speaking of meta, right, we saw in game 1 kind of an insane composition come out of Immortals. We saw the triple AD carry, but it's not a triple AD carry comp that we've seen prior. We had the Lucian top. There was no Kindred or Graves to be found on their side of the map. So Bjergsen, when that comes out in game 1 of a best-of-5 series, one, did it throw you for a loop, and how did you guys identify the way to play around that composition?
It's definitely difficult because you see these AD carries, you don't know which is going where. I see Huni playing Corki, Lucian top, all these different kinds of champions. But I think it's really just about playing team fights and locking down one of these AD carries in every single team fight, and we can just always blow one of them up. And once we blow one up, they basically become a 2-threat comp, and our Maokai will just out-tank them. So it was really looking for the right engages and identifying what does this strange comp that they build do? It pushes towers really well, and what does our comp do against theirs?
Yeah, Haunts are coming up big, playing Maokai and Poppy. Those tanks, as you mentioned, being so important in the top lane. Couldn't help but notice, though, that Echo was absent from the series. Doublelift, I'm going to turn to you on that one. I mean, where does TSM think that Echo falls into the power rankings, given the fact that it seems like the rest of the world is willing to first pick that champion?
I think, just depending on the team comp, we think Echo's pretty good, but if you need hard CC, then things like Maokai and Poppy are better because Echo's W is kind of situational, and he kind of needs setup for it, and he's more of a dive in the backline sort of champ. Yeah, I'm surprised Tuni didn't pick it. I honestly think it's kind of embarrassing that he just can't play Tank's top. First game he played Lucian, I kind of thought he was trolling, and then after that when he just kept playing carries, it was just really strange. So I think like Dennis just said, or like Sven just said, the meta kind of favors us, and it's obviously a Tank top meta, but Huni just could not play it.
Speaking of which, Huni did have a lot of difficulty in the series today, and in our opening feature of the day, Double F, we heard you say that the key to beating Immortals was going to be to beat them in one game, and then they would tilt. I mean, you did just that in game 1, but, there's some sentiment around, well, that was just more of the tilt meme. But then at the same time, that's exactly what happened. So how exactly did you guys identify the strengths and weaknesses of Immortals and the right areas to attack going into this series?
They're pretty one-dimensional. So Huni just refuses to play tanks, and Reignover is basically just on initiation duty with Rek'Sai and Gragas because of that. So it's kind of like a spiral effect. And then Adrian's champion pool is literally just Karma, Janna, Soraka. So we kind of knew exactly their bottom lane is just going to play only for lane, and if they don't completely crush lane, then they're useless. And Pobelter's just a wave clearing mid laner who plays pretty standard and consistent, steady. So I think they're a very kind of easy team to read from the get-go. Yeah.
Now Sven, you as a team having that 6th seed going into playoffs, given the fact that this is the first split we've done dynamic seeding, it meant that you had to play through the 3rd seed Cloud9 and now the 1st seed Immortal. So arguably the toughest road to the finals of any team, and yet you've done it. Talk to me a little bit about what this means then for the team and the morale as you move forward and look at that finals against CLG in the playoffs.
Yeah, so having the toughest way to the finals didn't really bother me too much because if we want to win the split, we have to beat the toughest opponents anyway, so just meeting them early on can give us a lot more confidence going into the finals. And going into the finals, I think we should be very confident, and I think we can beat CLG.
Speaking of the finals and speaking of CLG, Doublelift, back to you. You were on CLG winning the finals last split. Here you are on TSM against CLG to try and take that title back. What is your confidence level against this team having watched them play yesterday?
Oh yeah, I know them pretty well. I think it's TSM versus CLG is a double-sided matchup, so I'm pretty confident.
There you go. Yeah, whichever team Double side gonna have the confidence there. Bjergsen, we've heard from you that the team, has aspirations, of course, beyond just winning the NALCS. You're looking at MSI, looking at international play, as you always are. Considering that you do win the finals and you move on to MSI, what are the big goals and aspirations there, and how do you expect to do?
Well, of course we have big goals, but we're just going to focus on ourselves and our own performance because we improved so much in these last 3 weeks. And if we can keep that improvement up all the way up to MSI, I believe we can perform really well. We definitely still have a lot of things to work on leading up to playing against the best teams in the world. But with how our practice is going, I feel confident going into the final, and I think we can also do well internationally.
Well, a 6-1 record so far in the playoffs here in the spring split speaks to the improvements that you guys have made between the regular season and the playoffs. Congratulations once again on the victory today. Can't wait to see you guys in the finals. Now, though, it's time to recap the series, so let's check back in with the caster desk.